Who decides your worth, the resume you hand over or the skin you walk in? The sun had just begun to break over the quiet streets of Brookfield, a suburban town lined with clean storefronts and well-kept sidewalks. On the surface, it was a picture of order and prosperity, but inside one of those sleek buildings, a luxury car showroom with polished glass and spotless tile, something darker stirred. Not every injustice screams. Some whisper through dismissive glances, hardened smiles, and the slow erosion of dignity hidden behind policies and profit margins. At 6:03 a.m., a black SUV pulled into the lot of Hawthorne Elite Motors. From it stepped a man no one would recognize. Dressed in a wrinkled, button-down shirt and worn jeans, with his beard freshly shaved and his usual Rolex replaced by a simple black wristband, he looked like any job seeker hoping for a second chance. But this man wasn't just any new hire. His name, at least for today, was Andre Wallace, age 43. But his real name was Jonathan Hawthorne, CEO and founder of the Hawthorne Auto Group. A man who had built this empire from nothing. A man who, once upon a time, had been treated as if he didn't belong in showrooms just like this one. This morning, he wasn't stepping in as a boss. He was stepping into his own company, Undercover, to uncover the truth. Recent reports from this Brookfield branch didn't add up. Profits were steady, yet customer complaints were rising. Employee turnover had spiked. Morale was plummeting. But when Jonathan pressed his district managers, he received little more than vague excuses. The market's changing, they said. People just aren't buying like they used to. But Jonathan had heard whispers about manipulation, mistreatment, even intimidation. And if his name no longer protected his people, then maybe it was time to see who they really were when no one was watching. In the backseat of the car, he'd rehearsed his new persona. Andre, a former small-lot salesman from Akron, Ohio, recently laid off, looking for a fresh start. He'd worked out the cadence of his voice, adjusted his posture, changed the words he used. He knew too well how perception shifted when the man in front of you didn't wear power on his sleeves. He walked toward the front entrance, each step deliberate, each breath steady. Inside, the air was cool and controlled, just like the atmosphere. Rows of gleaming cars stood like trophies, each one carefully spotlighted beneath high-end LEDs. The floor tiles shone like mirrors. Everything in its place. Everything except fairness. A few employees stood scattered across the showroom. No one looked up. No one greeted him. Until a voice broke the silence. "You must be the new guy." The man speaking was tall, late 40s, with crisp silvering hair and an expensive watch that glinted under the lights. His name was Bradley Kent, the showroom manager. Jonathan knew the type. Bradley offered a firm handshake with a smile, too polished to be real. "Andre Wallace, right?" "Yes, sir. I didn't expect that name to come with, well, you." There it was. The flicker of judgment, the narrowing of eyes, the measuring of worth based on something other than ability. Jonathan smiled. "Life surprises you." Bradley didn't return the smile. Instead, he gestured toward the sales floor with a quick flick of his hand. "Well, this ain't a place for mistakes. You sell or you go. That clear?" And with that, Jonathan took his first steps into a place he once dreamed of building, and now feared had become something else entirely. But this story isn't just about hidden identities or boardroom revenge. It's about the people who suffer silently while power plays out behind glass walls. It's about what happens when the rot isn't in the numbers, but in the culture. And what it takes for someone to tear the mask off. Not just others, but off themselves. Before we dive deeper into this gripping, true-to-life story, take a moment to settle in. You have a glass of water, get comfortable, This isn't a story to rush through, because what happens next will leave you questioning not just the characters in this showroom, but the world around you, and the silent battles fought in plain sight. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above, casting a clinical glow over the high-gloss tile that stretched endlessly beneath Andre Wallace's boots. The air inside Hawthorne Elite Motors smelled of waxed leather, stale coffee, and something else. Pressure. A quiet, charged tension clung to the corners of the room like fog before a storm. You didn't see it on the polished surface, but it pulsed underneath everything. Jonathan, hidden behind his new name, followed Bradley Kent through the showroom, each step echoing faintly in the stillness. Bradley's polished black shoes tapped in rhythm, his tailored gray suit swinging with self-satisfaction, his posture exuding dominance. He was a man who believed he ran this world, and this dealership was his kingdom. Jonathan kept his shoulders slightly slouched, eyes downcast just enough to suggest submission, but not weakness. He needed to see it all, hear it all, without raising alarm. This wasn't about confrontation. Not yet. They reached the center of the showroom, where 3 sales desks formed a triangle like a war camp. Phones rang, papers shuffled. Salespeople smiled with bared teeth and watched customers like hawks circling over prey. Bradley stopped abruptly and turned to Jonathan with a thin smile. "All right, Marcus," he said, still clinging to the alias like it was beneath him. "Time to meet the wolves." Jonathan nodded once, his expression neutral, but his mind alert. Bradley gestured toward a lanky man leaning against a desk, arms crossed, lips curled into a smirk. "That's Rick," Bradley said. "One of our top closers. He'll show you the ropes." Rick stood up straighter, offering a handshake that squeezed too hard and lingered too long. He looked to be in his early 30s, clean-shaven with slicked-back hair and an arrogance that settled into every movement. "You know the drill," Rick said. "Move fast, talk faster, and don't let them walk." Jonathan met his grip with a slight squeeze of his own, enough to send a message. "I'm not as soft as I look." "Got it," he said, cool and even. A bell above the door jingled. A customer entering. Rick's eyes lit up like a predator. A middle-aged woman, likely mid-50s, browsed cautiously near a row of hybrids. She looked like she'd done her research. Rick's smile widened. Watch and learn. He wouldn't even dare to touch French, not until he had made sure Rick sauntered over, warm and reassuring. Jonathan followed from a distance, observing every detail. The woman smiled nervously, unsure of herself. Rick reassured her, nodded empathetically, then guided her, without asking, toward a luxury crossover well above average budget. His voice dripped with practiced ease. "You deserve something that reflects your value," he said smoothly. "Reliable, stylish, safe. Don't settle for less." Jonathan saw it clear as day. Subtle misdirection, manufactured trust, emotional leverage. The woman hesitated, glancing at a compact hybrid nearby. Rick's voice dropped a half octave. "Sure, you could go with that, but this one, it says you made it." The deal was sealed before she realized she was being sold an image, not a vehicle. Back at the desk, Jonathan sat down, trying to steady the quiet frustration rising in his chest. He remembered too well when he'd been on the other side of that pitch, when his mother had been pressured into buying a used car with a failing transmission because the salesman told her it was the best deal in town. Bradley returned, sipping from a gleaming silver travel mug. He leaned against the desk beside Jonathan, watching Rick close the deal. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "The art of persuasion." Jonathan turned slightly. "You mean manipulation?" Rajic laughed like it was a compliment. "Same difference." "You're going to do great here, Marcus. Just don't let empathy slow you down." Jonathan smiled faintly. "Wouldn't dream of it. But empathy was exactly what he brought with him. He spent the rest of the day shadowing the team. He watched Lisa, the only woman on the floor, handle a frustrated customer with sincere grace and patience, only to be mucked behind her back by Rick and another rep named Brandon. He noticed how employees avoided eye contact with Bradley, how laughter vanished when he entered the room, how fear clung like static. Later that afternoon, a young man in worn-out sneakers and a faded hoodie wandered in. He couldn't have been more than 22. His eyes darted across the showroom, equal parts curious and anxious. Lisa offered to assist him, but Bradley intercepted, motioning Rick over. "Get him on the lease plan. Sell him the dream," Bradley muttered. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Rick cornered the customer with false charm. He asked what the kid did for a living. "Barista." Then pitched him a fully loaded model with a lease he clearly couldn't afford, promising rebates and flexibility that didn't exist. Jonathan stepped forward. "Mind if I jump in?" he asked. Rick blinked. "You're still training?" "Exactly," Jonathan said, smiling. He turned to the young man, lowering his voice. "What do you need the car for?" The customer hesitated. "I deliver for DoorDash. My Civic just died. I need something cheap, reliable." Jonathan nodded, then pointed to a clean used sedan tucked in the back corner. "Start there," he said. "It's not flashy, but it won't bankrupt you." The kid's eyes lit up with relief. Rick stared at Jonathan like he'd grown two heads. But he said nothing. Back at the manager's office, Bradley watched through the glass. His jaw worked like he was grinding down enamel. Jonathan knew that look, and he welcomed it. The next morning began with rain. A soft drizzle soaked the glass facade of Hawthorne Elite Motors, turning its once pristine reflection into a watery blur. Inside, the sterile lights flickered slightly under the shift in pressure, and the tile floor shined duller than usual. But it wasn't just the weather. Something had changed. Andre Wallace, still operating under the name Marcus, walked into the showroom with quiet purpose. His steps were steady, but there was a storm building behind his calm. After yesterday's confrontation with Rick, and the way Bradley had silently tolerated it, Andre's patience had begun to fray. This wasn't just a toxic culture, it was a sickness that had been allowed to root and spread. And today, he would see how far the infection reached. Rick was already at his desk, laughing with Brandon over coffee that smelled more like burnt toast. Lisa sat alone across the room, eyes down, fingers nervously flipping through a stack of customer inquiries. Bradley, predictably, wasn't on the floor yet. As Andrew made his way past the service desk, Lisa looked up. She didn't smile, but her eyes lingered on him a second longer than yesterday, a silent acknowledgement. Andre gave her a nod. Then the door chimed again. This time it wasn't a hopeful buyer or a skeptical browser. It was a father, mid-60s, worn denim jacket, deeply lined face, with his teenage son trailing behind him. The boy wore a school hoodie and headphones around his neck. They were soaked from the rain. Andre instinctively moved toward them, but Rick swooped in like a bird of prey. "Morning, gentlemen," Rick said smoothly. "Looking for something special today?" The father hesitated. "Just a starter car for my son. Something safe. Affordable." Rick grinned. "You came to the right place." But Andre saw the shift in Rick's posture, the way he subtly angled them toward the luxury section. Andre stepped closer. "Didn't he said safe and affordable, Rick?" Rick turned slowly. "And I've got just the thing. Stay in your lane, rookie." Andre didn't flinch. "Just making sure the customer's words are heard." Rick's smirk faltered. The father looked between them, clearly sensing the tension. "You know what?" Andre said, turning to the father directly. "Let me show you a couple of solid options that won't eat up your savings." Rick took a step forward, lips curling. "You got a problem, Marcus?" Andre stepped forward closer, eye to eye. "No, I've got a conscience." The silence that followed cut the air like a knife. His sharp voice broke it. "What's going on here?" Bradley Kent, finally present, strutted in from the hallway, hair slick, tie too perfect. He scanned the three men, instantly clocking the friction. Rick opened his mouth, but Andre beat him to it. "Just making sure customers don't get misled." Bradley's jaw clenched. "My office. Now." They left the father and son with Lisa, who quickly picked up the cue and led them away. Andre followed Bradley to his glass box office. Once inside, the tension turned physical. Bradley didn't sit. He stood at the window, back turned, hands in his pockets. "You have no idea how things work here," he said coldly. "I do now," Andre said. "And that's the problem." Bradley turned, eyes narrowed. "You don't get to be the moral compass here. You're a temp, a nobody." Andre stepped forward, voice steady. "A nobody who gives a damn. You think that's noble? You think these people need saving?" Andre shook his head slowly. "They need honesty. They need someone who sees them as people, not paychecks." Bradley's lips curled. "You're not going to last a week here." "I don't need to," Andre said. "Just long enough." Bradley's laugh was a sharp bark. "Long enough for what?" Andre stared him down. "You'll find out." As he walked out of the office, something inside him shifted. He felt it in his spine, in the quickening of his breath. The moment wasn't just about one confrontation. It was a declaration. A refusal to comply. He passed Lisa, who glanced at him, concerned. "You okay?" she whispered. Andre paused. "Not really," he admitted. "But I'm done watching this happen." She looked down. "We all are, but most of us can't afford to speak." Andrew nodded. "Then let me be loud for a while." That afternoon, it happened again. A woman, Latina, maybe late 30s, came in with 2 children, tugging at her coat. She asked for a budget car. Rick tried to put her in a lease twice her income bracket. When she hesitated, he called her emotional and said maybe she should come back when she had her finances together. Andre stepped in, before she could leave, in shame. He apologized to her personally, showed her a car that made sense, printed out a transparent price quote, walked her out with dignity. And when she left, smiling, grateful, Andre turned to see Bradley watching from across the floor, expression unreadable. But Andre could feel it. War had been declared, and he wasn't backing down. By day 3, the storm was no longer just in sight, Andre. It had seeped into the walls of the showroom. The air felt heavier. Tension clung to every corner like static. Conversation stopped when Andre entered the room. Whispers followed him through the halls, some cautious, some curious, some resentful. But it wasn't just him anymore. Lisa had started to speak up in subtle ways, correcting Rick's misstatements, quietly guiding confused customers toward fair deals, holding her ground, and others were watching her. The old order was cracking. Yeah, and Rick, he knew it. That morning, Andre walked into the dealership to find Rick already pacing the floor like a caged wolf, eyes darting, jaw tight. Bradley hadn't shown up yet, which only gave Rick more room to posture. "Let's get one thing straight," Rick barked, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "I don't care what kind of charity act some of you are trying to put on lately. This is a business. We close, we sell, or we get out." Andre said nothing, but his silence was louder than Rick's bark. "Grow." The first customer came in an hour later. A young black couple in their late 20s, clearly first-time buyers. She was pregnant. He held the door open for her, one hand on her lower back, the other holding a folder stuffed with printouts and financing questions. They were prepared, and still they were nervous. Andre smiled and stepped forward. but Rick cut in, intercepting them halfway to the desk. "Hey there!" Rick's voice was a little too bright. "You two look like you're ready to start a family. Got just the thing for you." The woman tried to explain, "We were hoping to look at the Civic model you have online." Don't worry about that," Rick interrupted smoothly, already walking them toward a flashier model. "Forget the Civic. You want safety, comfort, resale value? This is the one." Andre's jaw tensed. The couple looked confused, polite, unsure. Andre moved. "Actually," he said calmly, stepping in beside them, "the Civic has one of the highest safety ratings in its class and is more fuel efficient than this model. And based on what you listed online," he gestured to the folder, "it's exactly what you're looking for." The man blinked. "You read our email?" Andre nodded. "And I ran the numbers. We can make it work." Rick's face darkened. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Marcus?" Andre turned to him, voice low but firm. "I'm doing the job you forgot how to do." Lisa glanced up from her desk. "Another salesperson, Tyler." Froze, mid-pitch, to his customer. The room was quiet. Rick stepped closer. "You're about to cross a line." Andre took one slow breath. Then, without a word, he turned to the couple. "Give me 10 minutes. I'll get the keys. We'll test drive it together." The woman nodded slowly. Her eyes flicked between Andre and Rick, and she took a step toward Andre. Rick exploded. "You think this is your show now? You think because you got a few pity sales? You're the goddamn hero of the month." Andre turned. Calm, controlled, but sharp enough to draw blood. "No, I just don't believe in lying to people who walk in here hoping for something better." Rick charged forward, closing the space between them until they were chest to chest. "You don't know who you're messing with." Andre didn't blink. "I know exactly who you are, and I've been watching long enough." Then came the moment no one expected. Rick, you shoved Andre hard. Andre stumbled back 2 steps, but caught himself. The room gasped. The silence that followed was electric. Andre slowly straightened his back. The sting on his shoulder pulsed. But he didn't retaliate, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he stepped forward and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This ends today." Bradley's voice cut in, sharp from behind the glass door. "What the hell is going on out here?" He stormed into the room, eyes darting between Rick's clenched fists and Andre's steady stance. Lisa stood now, Tyler too. Even the receptionist peeked in from the front. Andre turned to Bradley. "You want to know? I'll show you." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. "Been recording since Monday. Everything. The upselling, the harassment, the lies." Gasps. Rick took a step back. You can't use that." Andre turned the screen toward Bradley. "I'm not Marcus Brown." He held the gaze of every person in the room. "My name is Andre Wallace. I'm the CEO of Wallace Automotive Group." Dead silence. Then Bradley's mouth opened, but no words came out. Andre's voice softened, but it carried all the way through the glass. Rick's face went pale. Bradley stepped forward, trying to recover. "Andre, Mr. Wallace, I didn't know." Andre didn't let him finish. "No, you didn't, because you never bothered to ask. You just let this happen, over and over. You were too busy protecting your status to protect your people." He looked around the room. "I built this company to help people, to give customers dignity, to give employees pride. And if anyone in here believes in that mission, we rebuild, starting now." He turned to Lisa. "You with me?" Lisa, eyes wide but steady, nodded. "All the way." Then Tyler raised his hand too. "I've been waiting for this." And just like that, the spell Rick had cast was broken. Andre looked to Rick one last time. You don't represent this company anymore, and you never did. As Rick turned and stormed out, Andre felt something lift, like the ceiling had risen and there was room to breathe again. Behind him, applause broke out. Soft at first, then louder. A sound this showroom hadn't heard in years. Oh, the day after Rick Moore was fired, the showroom didn't open with the same mechanical rhythm it used to. It opened with a long, collective exhale. Gone was the tension that once weighed down every step, but what took its place was something equally heavy. Response. Andre Wallace stood in the center of the dealership floor, coffee in hand, watching the early morning sun flood the polished tile through the front glass doors. The cars gleamed under soft golden light. But this morning, he didn't look at them as commodities. He looked at them as promises. To the team, to the customers, to himself. Lisa approached quietly, holding a clipboard. Her eyes were tired but clear. You ready for this? She asked. Andre smiled faintly. I've been ready my whole life. Behind them, Tyler was resetting the price displays on every vehicle. He looked up, catching Andre's gaze, and gave a thumbs up. Transparency starts now, right? Tyler said. Right, Andre nodded. By 10 a.m., Andre had pulled the team into the conference room. Glass walls, wide table. The same space that used to echo with Rick's dismissive lectures. Now it felt warmer, as if the room itself was relieved. Andre stood at the head of the table, but not above them. I won't sugarcoat this, he began. What happened here didn't start and end with Rick. It grew because no one stopped it. That ends today. He placed a folder on the table. Inside, printed documentation of Rick's practices, customer complaints, hidden fees, and manipulated contracts. I'm not showing this to shame you, Andre continued. I'm showing it to set us free. From this day forward, we rebuild trust with each other and with the people who walk through that door. There was a pause. Then Lisa raised her hand. What about the customers who've already been hurt? Andre's voice softened. We make it right. Every deal Rick touched, we re-audited it. Every warranty he sold, under pressure, we offer to renegotiate or cancel it. We call them one by one. A stunned silence followed. Then one voice. Bradley, still at the edge of the room, uncertain about his place, spoke up. That could cost us thousands. Andrea nodded. Maybe more. Bradley frowned. And you're okay with that? Andre looked him in the eye. I'm not here to run the same kind of company that lets profit bury people. He let the words settle. Lisa leaned forward, voice steady. Then I'm in. Tyler followed. Same here. Slowly, the rest of the team added their names to the commitment sheet. Andre laid out. Rebuild, relearn, re-earn. And so, they began. The next few days were quiet, but in a different way. Focused, purposeful, almost sacred. Andre worked side by side with Lisa, retraining the team, not just on sales strategy, but on empathy, listening, and integrity. Role plays became real. Questions became deeper. Doubts became opportunities. He created a new motto on the wall near the entrance. We don't sell cars, we serve people. Customers who walked in noticed the difference immediately. One woman, an older retired teacher named Mrs. Rayburn, had been sold a high-interest deal by Rick's team 2 months prior. When she came back, unsure if she'd even be heard, Lisa sat her down personally, offered her coffee, and walked her through every line of her contract. Andrea joined halfway through, listening, explaining, then quietly offering her A complete contract renegotiation at no penalty. Her eyes welled up. Apple, why? Andre leaned in. Because you deserve better than what we were. And this is who we are now. She reached out and took his hand. You have no idea what that means to someone like me. Outside the showroom, Andre stood alone one evening, watching the sunset stretch amber and rose across the sky. The wind carried the faint scent of engine, oil, and fresh grass. Lisa joined him, sipping coffee. You know, she said, I thought about leaving a dozen times before you came. I thought, maybe it's just how this world works. Andre shook his head. That's what they want us to believe, that kindness is weakness, that greed is strength. But they're wrong. She turned to him. You sure you're staying? Most CEOs do the drop-in, drop-out thing. Andre smirked. I didn't come here to visit. I came to change something. She smiled. Then, as if on cue, Tyler jogged out from the building, holding a clipboard. You might want to see this, he said. He handed over the customer survey from the week. For the first time in over a year, every review was positive. One note read, I came in expecting pressure. I left feeling like a person again. Andre folded the page slowly, a lump forming in his throat. He looked out the sky again, voice low. This is what we're meant to build. Lisa stood beside him in silence. And just then, the lights inside the showroom flickered on behind them, casting long reflections on the glass. Not a monument to profit anymore, a place of purpose. The quiet of transformation doesn't come all at once. It hums beneath the surface, like a low, steady note. At Carter Auto Riverdale, it lingered, in the way coffee cups no longer rattled with anxiety, in the way team meetings no longer echoed with fear, and in the way the Breakroom became more than a place to escape. It became a space to speak. That afternoon, the sky outside the dealership hung heavy with late summer clouds. Thunder was brewing somewhere far off, the light dim just enough to throw long shadows across the tiled floors. Andre Wallace sat alone in the breakroom, stirring cream into his coffee, watching the swirl dissolve into a soft brown. There was a peace in the silence, but also anticipation. The door creaked open. It was Bradley. He looked unsure, eyes flicking to the chair across from Andre. Andre nodded once, subtle, and Bradley sat. Bradley started, then stopped, rubbing his hands together. I know I haven't exactly earned your trust. I followed Rick's lead for a long time. Andre didn't speak. He just let Bradley find his own words. Bradley exhaled. But what you did last week, it shook me. I thought Rick was untouchable. I thought all that stuff he said about control and power and real business was just how it had to be. Andre sipped his coffee, then spoke quietly. And now, Bradley looked down at his hands. Now, I can't sleep right. I keep thinking about the customers I rushed through, the ones I sold on things they didn't need. There was this one guy, retired mechanic, came in with his granddaughter, just needed something safe. I put him in a loan he couldn't afford, and I knew it. Andrea leaned back. Do you remember his name? Bradley nodded instantly. Mr. Green. Thomas Green. Andre stood up. Then call him. Bradley looked up. Even if I get fired? Andre held his gaze. You won't get fired for doing the right thing. Not in this building. Bradley swallowed. Then he stood. In a single deliberate action, he worked out of the break room, shoulders squared, heading straight for the phone at his desk. Elsewhere in the showroom, Lisa was finishing a sale with a young couple, new parents buying their first family SUV. Their baby cooed in a stroller nearby while the mother carefully signed the paperwork. As Lisa walked them out, Tyler met her at the door. "World, we've got a visitor," he said, nodding toward the lobby. Standing there was a woman in her mid-30s, sharply dressed, arms crossed, but her eyes were nervous. Her name tag read, Tina McAllister, Regional Compliance Manager. Andre appeared a moment later. "With McAllister," he said, extending a hand. "You're early." "I thought a surprise visit would be more illuminating," she replied. Lisa and Tyler exchanged glances. Andrew smiled politely. "Then let me show you what we've built." He walked her through everything. The new sales protocol, transparency documents, customer survey archives, the community outreach board on the wall with handwritten thank you notes pinned like leaves on a tree. One from Mrs. Rayburn read, "For the first time, I felt like I mattered." Tina paused at that. "I've been to 14 locations this quarter," she said softly. "I haven't seen one like this." Andre led her into the break room where Bradley now stood, on the phone, voice calm but emotional. "Yes, sir. No fees, no pressure. I just wanted to do right by you. We got a better deal waiting, and I'd like to earn back your trust." Tina raised an eyebrow. Andre simply said, "Second chances start with first actions." Later that evening, after Tina left, Lisa and Tyler gathered with Andre outside, leaning on the hood of a car, watching the clouds roll away into dusk. "You think it'll last?" Andrew didn't answer right away, and he pointed up, toward the dealership's new banner. A clean, white stretch of canvas now hanging where Rick's old top performer wall used to be. Painted on it, in bold blue, "We lead with truth." He said, "It'll last, if we live it." Lisa looked over. "Even if it cost us in the short run?" Andre nodded. "Especially if it costs us in the short run." Tyler exhaled, then offered a crooked smile. "Then I guess we better make it worth it." Andre clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Oh, we will." And somewhere down the block, in a small kitchen apartment, Thomas Green sat by the phone, listening to the voicemail Bradley had left. His hand trembled as he played it again, and again, and again. The sound of someone who remembered his name. By Thursday morning, something had changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't announced. But it was there, in the way conversations lasted longer, by the copier, in the way the sales team stood just a little taller, in the way people finally started looking each other in the eye. Andre Wallace felt it the second he stepped into the showroom. The air, once laced with fear and silence, now hummed with something steadier, unspoken but present. Lisa met him at the reception desk, holding a tablet. "Customer feedback just came in from yesterday's sale," she said, then smiled faintly. 5 stars. Felt respected. Heard. No pressure. Andrea's lips curled into a quiet grin. "That's the new standard." Bradley stood with Tyler, showing him a revised price transparency sheet they'd spent the evening working on. The words, "Customer First," were now printed clearly at the top of every form. Then the glass office door opened. From corporate. No clipboard, no briefcase, just a notepad and a steady gaze. Andre walked to her with practiced ease. "Did expect you back so soon?" Janine gave a small nod. "There's been chatter. Upper leadership wants clarity. I'm here to observe, not interfere." Her eyes scanned the showroom. "You've stirred up a lot of noise, Andre." Belle looked her square in the eye, then let them listen, closely. She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. At noon, the weekly team meeting began, not in the usual sterile huddle around Derek's old desk, but in the open lounge, where sunlight poured in through tall windows and coffee steamed gently from ceramic mugs, not foam cups. Everyone was present. Lisa, Bradley, Tyler, Monica from finance, even Sarah from service came up with grease on her knuckles and sat at the edge. Andre stood in front, no podium, no laptop. Just a man, speaking from where it mattered. You already know why we're here, he began. The storm has passed, but the work is just starting. He looked around the room. This place used to run on silence, on intimidation, on sales sheets that told us what mattered was the number at the bottom of the contract, not the name at the top. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Those days are over. But that means we build something different. Together. He stepped aside, revealing a large corkboard. Pinned across it were anonymous stories submitted over the past few days. Scrap paper. One read, I watched Will push a woman into a payment plan that would break her. I said nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Another, I was scared to speak up because I didn't think anyone would have my back. Andre let the silence speak. Then he turned to the team. I'm not asking for perfection, he said. I'm asking for courage. Lisa stood. Her voice was steady, but soft. Courage doesn't always feel like a roar. Sometimes it's the decision to speak in a room that used to punish voices. Monica added, I used to dread walking in here. Now I see possibilities. Tyler raised a hand. I used to think sales was just about winning. Now I know it's about serving. Bradley cleared his throat. I want to tell Mr. Green, thank you for letting me try again. Tears pooled in his eyes, but he didn't look away. Jameen, from the corner, scribbled something in her notebook. Andrea said nothing. Instead, he picked up a single piece of paper and pinned it beside the others. In thick marker, it read, Accountability is a language, and we are fluent now. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, the showroom lights dimmed. Only the soft glow of desk lamps lit the space. Outside, behind the glass, shadows moved. Customers browsing, peering in. Inside, the team lingered. Lisa pulled down a long roll of brown craft paper from a supply closet. Idea board, she said, simply. Tyler grabbed markers and Monica pinned it to the wall near the lounge. Aaron, laugh, find. One idea, customer birthdays. Another, free car care class for single parents. Someone drew a cartoon of Derek with steam coming out his ear. Think from it. Janine watched from a quiet corner. She didn't speak. She just smiled. It was small, but real. And that night, as Andre turned off the showroom lights, he paused one last time at the glass. The reflection staring back wasn't just his. It was all of them. Together, Friday morning arrived with a chill in the air, the kind that whispered that something was about to shift. Sunlight spilled across the showroom's glass facade, bathing the polished cars in a warm, deceptive glow. But inside, a storm waited to break. Andre Wallace stood near the service entrance, reviewing employee schedules on a clipboard, when Janine approached, her heels silent against the tile. They're coming, she said quietly. Andre looked up. All of them? Ginny nodded. The board, corporate, legal, even Mr. Harrington. Andre exhaled. Harrington was the CFO, rarely seen outside of quarterly reports. His presence meant this wasn't just observation anymore. It was judgment. Angie straightened. Good. Let them see what truth looks like when it's not dressed for comfort. By 11 a.m., the entire team was called into the main floor. No one sat. The sunlight streamed through the call glass, illuminating every corner. There was nowhere to hide. Tension coiled in the air, thick and fragile. Outside, luxury cars gleamed. Inside, the truth stood waiting. Janine stepped forward first, flanked by 2 senior board members and a man in a dark charcoal suit. "Mr. Harrington, thank you for gathering so quickly," she began. "We're here today to listen, to verify, and, if necessary, to act." His turned to Andre. He didn't hesitate. He walked to the center of the floor, stood beneath the recessed lights, and began. "My name is Andre Wallace," he said, voice steady. "Most of you know me as Marcus, the new guy." A flicker of surprise passed across a few faces, but most had already guessed. "What you don't know is that I'm the CEO of Carter Auto Group." Gasps. Audible. Shock. Lisa covered her mouth. Bradley blinked twice. Tyler actually took a step back. But Andre wasn't here for drama. He was here for the reckoning. I came here undercover because reports from this location didn't match the values we stand for. Customers felt cornered. Employees felt silenced. The culture was toxic. I didn't want a spreadsheet. I wanted truth. He turned slowly, meeting every eye. "I found it." He gestured to Lisa, then Bradley. They spoke up, quietly, bravely, not because they thought it would earn them anything, but because they believed this place could be better. He walked toward the corkboard still pinned with anonymous notes. Others left messages. Stories, confessions, pain. That board? That's your real training manual. Read it. Andre then pulled out a folder from under his arm and handed it to Mr. Harrington. "In here," he said, "is every recording, every manipulated invoice, every unethical upsell, every lie told to a customer." A murmur swept through the team. Will shifted nervously, and then the glass doors opened. Derek Moore stepped inside as if summoned by fate. His eyes scanned the room, reading the faces, sensing the shift in energy. He smirked, but it didn't hold the weight it once did. "Hope I'm not late," he said, his voice cutting the silence. Janine turned. "Mr. Moore, you're just in time." Andre walked toward him, calm but firm. "I told you," he said. "This wasn't your kind of game anymore." Derek laughed under his breath. "So the rookie's the king now, huh? You fooled everyone. But let's be real, Andre. No one here had a problem with the way I ran things until you showed up." Lisa stepped forward. "I had a problem," she said, her voice clear. "I just didn't think anyone would listen." Bradley nodded. "Me too." Sarah from service joined them. "You made us feel replaceable." One by one, employees stepped forward, until half the room stood behind Andre. Derek's smirk cracked. "You think this circus means anything?" he snapped. "You'll lose sales. You'll tank this branch." Abdri stepped closer, his voice low but slicing. "We'd rather start from the ground with integrity than build on a foundation of fear." He turned to Harrington. "My recommendation, Derek Moore's termination. Effective immediately. Full investigation into practices at Riverdale branch. Mandatory ethics retraining at all locations." Harrington nodded once. "Approved." Derek looked around, realizing for the first time that he stood alone. He scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and stormed toward the exit. The glass door didn't slam, but the silence that followed was louder than any crash. Andre turned back to his team. "You didn't just stand up today," he said. "You rose." Then he walked to the brown craft paper The idea board. Grabbed a red marker. In big, bold letters he wrote, "We start fresh, with heart." Lisa smiled. Tyler clapped him on the back. Janine finally set her notepad down. And outside, his sun burned brighter. Because inside, a new story had begun. The day after Derek Moore's fall, the Riverdale showroom was quieter than anyone had ever heard it. No sales pitches echoing off polished tile. No tense laughter hiding behind commission chases. Just a soft hum of overhead lights and the distant ping of someone resetting the espresso machine in the breakroom. Andre Wallace stood alone at the center of the floor, the space still marked by yesterday's confrontation. The spot where truth had landed like thunder still held a kind of energy, as if the air remembered what courage had done to power. Janine entered from the hallway with a stack of folders hugged tightly to her chest. Her heels clicked softly, but she didn't speak right away. Andre turned, still holding the red marker he had used the day before. He looked down at the words scrawled across the brown butcher paper, taped to the wall. "Mais c'est fresh," with heart. "We've got a long list," Janine said gently. "Complaints to follow up, calls from customers who want to speak directly to leadership, and resumes." Andre raised an eyebrow. She smirked. Apparently, word's getting around. He took a breath. "Good. Let them come. But only if they know this isn't about cars anymore. This is about people." Janine nodded. "You want to address the team?" Andrea glanced toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, a light rain had begun to fall, soft and rhythmic, like the earth was cooling after fire. "Yeah," he said. "Let's bring them in." 20 minutes later, the sales team, what remained of it, gathered in the center showroom. Lisa stood near the front, arms loosely crossed. Bradley hovered beside her, occasionally rubbing the back of his neck. Will stayed toward the back, more reserved than usual. Andre didn't take the platform. He stayed on the ground, eye level with everyone. "This is where we build again," he began. "Not from spreadsheets, not from targets. From here," he pointed to his chest, "and here," he gestured to the team. "You've seen what power without purpose looks like. Now I want you to see what leadership with conscience feels like." A beat of silence. Then Lisa spoke, her voice quiet but unwavering. "What happens to everything Derek built, the structure, the pressure, it's still here." Andre nodded. "Then we tear it down, together." He moved to the whiteboard near the main office and erased every number, every chart, every weekly quota listed. Then, in big block letters, he wrote, "People first. From now on," he continued, "we'll sell with transparency. We'll listen. We'll advise. We won't manipulate." He turned to Willa. "That means letting go of tactics that pad numbers but hurt people." Will shifted, uncertain. "And if the numbers drop?" "They might," Andrea admitted. "But if the foundation is honest, the growth will last." Lisa stepped forward again. "And what about us? The ones who stayed silent too long?" Andre paused, then looked her straight in the eye. "You were surviving, but now you get to live." The words hit something in her, in all of them. Then came the action. In the next week, the showroom transformed. Posters with fine print, finite traps came down. A new feedback board was pinned beside the coffee machine with a sign above it that read, "What didn't feel right today?" Training began, not in a conference room, but through real role-playing with Andre himself. He sat as a nervous customer, as an over-budget mom, as a skeptical retiree. He let them fail, let them learn. I let him fail. One afternoon, during a slow hour, Andre sat with Bradley at a window booth. Bradley fiddled with a pen. "Never thought I'd still be here after yesterday." Andre smiled. "I didn't think I'd still be breathing after calling Derek out." Bradley laughed softly. "Feels different now," he added. "Like I can look a customer in the eye again." Andre nodded. "That's the only way forward." Then came the media. Board of the Undercover CEO, the confrontation, the culture reset. It spread. Local papers ran headlines. CEO exposes own manager in bold shakeup. From power trip to purpose, Riverdale dealership rewrites the rules. Some laughed, some praised, others criticized. But the showroom didn't slow. It grew stronger. Customer traffic increased. Reviews turned from pushy and impersonal to respectful, empowering, human. A woman returned with her child, the same woman Derek had once cornered. This time, Lisa greeted her. She wasn't selling, just listening. And the woman smiled. "This feels like a whole different place." "Every good idea." "It is," Lisa replied. And then, one morning, Andre returned to find something waiting on his desk. It's like a little loungy, a small box. Inside, a handwritten note. "Thank you for letting people like me believe again." No. And beneath it, a folded flyer from a rival dealership across town. With a sticky note, "Your story reached further than you know." Andre smiled quietly. He didn't need applause. Just proof. That truth, when spoken aloud, moves further than fear. On a quiet Sunday morning, Andre Wallace stood alone by the glass window of the Riverdale showroom. The city had not yet stirred. Even the sunlight slipped in gently, casting soft golden reflections on the cars. No speeches, no cameras, just him, a mug of lukewarm coffee, and a silence that felt earned. This wasn't victory. This was grounding. What they built now would not erase the past, but it would honor it, piece by piece, voice by voice. In the weeks ahead, new hires would be trained not only in product knowledge, but in humility. Former customers would return, not out of curiosity, but because something in them had felt respected. Finally. And those who had stayed silent would start to speak, one at a time. The story wasn't about a CEO in disguise. It was about dignity returned. Justice. Not just as policy, but as practice. In the kind of leadership that doesn't shout from podiums, but stands still long enough to listen. Because sometimes the quietest truths shake the loudest walls. As we grow older, we begin to see that real power was never about titles, volume, or control. It's about integrity, doing what's right, even when no one is watching, especially when doing so means standing alone. Andrea Wallace's story reminds us that there are still people willing to walk into broken places, not to dominate, but to heal. And that healing isn't loud. It happens in the way someone rewrites the rules with care. It happens when a single act of decency ripples through a room and quietly says, "This is no longer acceptable." For those of us who've seen history repeat itself, in injustice, in prejudice, in silence, we know change doesn't come easy, but it does come when enough of us remember who we were raised to be, honest, brave, and unwavering. Let this story be a reminder that, even in an age that often forgets, our values still have a place, and our presence, our witness, still matters. If this story stirred something in you, please consider subscribing to Racist Stories Uncovered. Share this video so these lessons can reach further. Into boardrooms, classrooms, living rooms. Every view, like, and share is a hand extended toward a fairer world. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story, only on Racist Stories Uncovered.